Now, I'm not sure about you, but I personally don't really watch motorsports or your F1s and all that, but I do really enjoy their timepieces. Now I'm looking at Tag Heuer and its Carrera lineup, F1 Formula lineup, Monaco lineup, not to mention IWCs and also Rolexes. But let's be real, I'm not really paying the big bucks for those brands and those watches when it comes to their motorsports pieces. I know they're expensive, I know their quality, I know they're well endorsed by celebrities, but personally, I just don't have that kind of cash on me and that kind of mentality to go out there and buy one of those pieces. And besides, they're overly big. Your Tag Heuer chronographs that are associated with F1 or motorsports runs anywhere from 41 millimeters all the way to 45 millimeters. Not to mention, they're also overly thick due to sometimes it being a mechanical movement or an automatic movement. And the quartz movement just aren't worth it. You're looking at 3 to 4 grand retail for Tag Heuer quartz, 43 millimeters, and it's their basic F1 Formula model in a rubber strap. Now, that's not really a value proposition for me. And when I look at watches, I look at how well they're built, a little bit of history, and also their price range, whether or not it's worth me paying the money. The ChronOris that we have today has a lineage to Oris's touch points in the motorsports industry. Its size, it's very comfortable at 39 millimeters, 12.5 mil thick, and just over 43 millimeter lug to lug. So very wearable for those with smaller wrists. And at the same time, price wise, brand new retail at an Oris store, 2,500 Australian dollars on their OEM NATO strap. Now, that's a value proposition for me. That's a nice, easy, affordable step into the league of motorsports watches. So the question today is really, does the Oris ChronOris satisfy my motorsports craving in its package, price-wise and case diameter? We'll find out. Now, if you've not heard of the ChronOris before, I don't really blame you. I've never even really heard of the idea of Oris having a racing inspired watch other than their F1 Williams pieces, which they did in collaboration with the Williams F1 team from the UK. I wasn't aware of the ChronOris at all. In fact, I didn't really come across the ChronOris until I saw one on Facebook Marketplace a couple of years ago, and it was one of the Movember editions, and I quickly took a liking to it due to its uniqueness of its case and also the dial design and colors. And it wasn't till late last year that I managed to get my hands on one of these non-Movember editions in an OEM NATO strap that I truly appreciated how unique these ChronOrises really are. Right? It's no real. It's you know Oris. If you know Oris, you know their profile align, you know their pointer dates, you know the Aquis, and obviously you know the Diver 65. I've had all of those watches before I even came across the ChronOris, and if I'm being honest, I probably gravitate towards the ChronOris more than I've ever had with those watches. I've had a Pro Pilot Movember edition, I've had a pointer date, I've had Diver 65, the Vil, and I've had an Aquis as well. And I'll be honest with you, none of them really made me vibe with the watch, unlike the ChronOris. And really, it's because of how unique this watch really is. First of all, its case. It's this barrel shape, tonneau style case that really has no lug, so it makes it really comfortable to actually just put on your wrist and you'll just forget that it's almost there. Second of all, the dual crown design, which is part of the OG ChronOris that was made in the 1970s when it first launched as Oris's first motorsports watch, number one, and two, their first ever chronograph. So really the ChronOris has a lot of history when it comes to its place in the Oris lineup of watches. And I'm just surprised Oris never really took the opportunity to market it more, given how well it could do their Diver 65 re-release back in 2015, and they built up that whole story, was a great success. But I never really saw that when it came to the ChronOris, and which is why that's one of the reasons it's been discontinued for so long. It's, well, not for so long, in the past couple of years. It was released in 2017, but was then discontinued, I think, a couple of years back. So it's really a shame, because these are really nice watches. You're looking at a very wearable case. You're looking at a dial that has racing inspired designs, as in the pop of colors. In this case, the orange that kind of is all over the dial is very reminiscent of things you could see in a Tag Heuer, right, with all their colors, in IWC even, and in some Rolexes as well. So the play of colors here on the ChronOris is really nice. Just overall, it's a really nice wearing watch for what it is, and it really isn't something that you'd call a racing watch. It isn't something you'd call an everyday piece. It's just kind of out there, which is why I think as well it hasn't been as popular as Oris thought it might have been. Just because it's a watch that's, in a way, it's a hit or miss. It's all over the place in terms of design, right? You have metallic markers that pretty much glows in your face when the lighting hits. It's tipped off by orange little squares above the markers. You have a minute track that goes around inner every minute, and then you have an outer minute track that is based off of the inner rotating bezel that you can control with the second crown. That's why it's really there for. And speaking of, the second crown is actually screwed in, so that's a nice touch. Not that I would really care anyways. I don't really know how to use a timing bezel. I'm not really much of a dive watch person. And the way I see this ChronOris as well at the same time is it's almost as if they decided to merge a racing piece with a diving piece, right? It reminds me of the Longines Dual Crown Conquest, or Heritage Conquest. I'm not sure what it's called, but I'll put a picture up here somewhere. But it reminds me of that, but in a racing form, right? You have all the racing components to it. You have that weird but equally beautiful case. The date window is there. You have your timing bezel, and you have your non-screw down crown, which you can easily hand wind. And inside is an SW200, which is decorated by Oris. I have no doubt it's one of their, Oris calibers, but it's based off an SW200. So it's a really nice, overall convincing package. Now, my real question is, who would buy this watch? And for me, I fall into a few categories that would be someone that would be potentially interested in buying this watch. For me, first of all, the size. The size is really great. 39 millimeters. This is probably the most comfortable 39 millimeter piece I've ever put my hands on or put on my wrist. The lack of lugs at just over 43 mil, the thinness at 12.5, and the case diameter of 39 means it wears absolutely gorgeous on my 6-inch wrist. Now, I will preface that the OEM NATO it comes on, if you put that on your 6-inch wrist, first of all, the lug holes don't even go that far for you, so you have to put it on a larger one. Second of all, it's pretty thick, right? Especially for double pass NATOs. I love DIYing single pass NATOs. I'm not about to do that on a nice OEM Oris style NATO. So what I've done, I've put it on a Tropic rubber strap, and I've actually wore this a lot more than I would have if it was on just the OEM NATO strap, just because of how comfortable the rubber strap actually makes it. Now, if you have bigger wrists than mine, then you have no problems with the OEM NATO strap. You probably have no problem with the size as well. But for those, if you're watching my channel, you know I'm very conscious on size, because at the end of the day, if it's not comfortable, I'm not going to wear it. That's my philosophy. But the Oris passed that test 100%. The second reason for why you should, or you would like maybe to even investigate more into the ChronOris and potentially purchasing one, is you're stepping into a world of affordable luxury watches, which is Oris, and it's ties to motorsports without having to jump into buying a Tag Heuer that's going to cost 2-3 times more than an automatic Oris. Bear in mind, automatic. You could probably get a $2,500 tag, Formula One tag that's a little bit bigger in size, but it's in quartz, right? With the Oris, it's automatic SW200 from Salida. So that's a big value proposition there. It's a real dipping your toes into the motorsport watch world without having to splurge the big bucks on a Tag Heuer just so you could experience that pop of color in an everyday watch. And then the third thing, and this brings me to my third point, for those looking for an everyday watch that isn't your everyday regular black dial, metal strap, Rolex Explorer 1, or a Zinn 556, for example. That's a popular one for a smaller wristed. A Christopher Ward Sealander in 36. If you're looking for something a little different, you're not looking for that metal bracelet piece in a 36mm package, the ChronOris is actually a really nice pop of color to introduce in your everyday life. Now, granted, the orange might be a bit too much for you, but personally, I feel like Oris has done a really good job in maintaining the understatedness of the orange, as it blends really nicely with the rest of the dial because of how busy it really is. You don't actually mind the orange too much. It's actually a really nice inclusion to the ChronOris, the orange pop. So it makes it, how busy the dial is, the orange actually makes it more simple. I'm not sure if that makes total sense, but if you ever get your hands on one of these pieces and you put it on your wrist, you'll realize how much it's really a blend of fun and everyday, right? You won't get bored looking at it. This is one of those pieces that I've actually started a lot of conversations with, because it's either, hey, that's a nice looking watch, or hey, that's a really ugly watch. Why is it so busy, and why is the orange kind of all over the place? So again, bit of a hit or miss with Oris ChronOris, but for me, it's an absolute hit because I love racing inspired motorsports pieces. My wallet doesn't really love it, and my skinny wrists certainly don't like it as well, just because a lot of them are chronographs that are quite thick. This is not a chronograph. Now, the OG ChronOris is a chronograph, but this is just a simple three-hander. So servicing cost won't be through the roof as well as if you had bought a Tag Heuer Motorsport chronograph. Servicing this will be perfectly fine, and you won't have to service it as often because, well, there's just simply less moving parts in the three-hander compared to a chronograph. And then just the size of this thing is perfect. I know I keep mentioning the size of the ChronOris, but it really wears nicely on the wrist. And once it's on your wrist, you can wear it with jeans, you can wear it with a suit, you can wear it to the beach, right? But really, I think this one here is a jeans and a white t-shirt kind of vibe. But really, blank canvas, right? The orange, again, like I said, it's kind of all over the place, but it's also quite nice. It blends into the watch really, really well. 100-meter water resistance means you could probably take this to most places, right? It's, like I said, it's kind of like a racing inspired dive style watch with the inner rotating bezel. Although I will say now, preface that the inner rotating bezel is probably meant for some racing related function, which I probably have no idea about because I don't really watch F1 or whatever. I know some last names. I know Verstappen. I know Bottas, Rosberg, Schumacher, but that's probably the extent of my F1 knowledge. However, I do love F1 watches. So what I would really suggest is, because they are discontinued and they are getting a little bit harder to find, if you are interested in one of these, definitely look out on the gray market or the used market. Chances are you'll be able to find one for a pretty good price because, again, they are a bit of a hit or miss. Those who've bought it and love it probably won't be looking at reselling them, knowing that they are now discontinued. But those who bought it and probably didn't really fit into the lineup or their style of watches, you're potentially looking at grabbing a pretty good deal off of those people. So they are discontinued by Oris, but they are readily available. I picked mine off in a local Facebook Marketplace seller. I got it at a pretty good price as well, just under 2,000 Australian dollars. So less than retail, less than what I would have paid, and decides you can't really buy these anymore. So really a real summary of the Oris ChronOris for me. Size-wise, that's a tick. The aesthetics, that's a tick for me. Again, hit or miss, but that, for me, I absolutely love it. Thirdly, the history behind it, right? 1970s, first chronograph created by Oris. First step into the motorsport industry, and now the reissue in a three-hander, simpler version, which I absolutely would prefer more, because I know for a fact that this chronograph version would easily be 2 to 3 times the cost. So I love this version of the ChronOris. And just the size, again, it wears so nicely. And it's a nice everyday fun watch for me, that to really get away from your typical everyday watches, throw in a little bit of fun into the strap, put it on an orange native strap if you even like, get more fun out of it, because why not? And for me, that's just the big value proposition when it comes to Oris's, right? They are built nicely, affordable luxury watches, and the ChronOris here is just a real understated, underrated part of that Oris lineup of watches that no one really knows about. So if you ever get your chance on one of these pieces, I would highly recommend grabbing it if you like it. And I think this is one of those where if you see it, you know you like it right away, or you don't. Now, thanks for watching my take on the ChronOris. I will see you on the next one.